The galaxy was at war. For years, the alien fleets had been unstoppable, sweeping through the stars, crushing one planet after another. Their ships were massive, their weapons more powerful than anything humanity had ever seen. Earth, a small and young planet, was considered weak. The aliens thought they could easily conquer it, just like all the others. But what the invaders didn't know was that Earth had a secret, one that could change the fate of the galaxy forever. Deep beneath the oceans of Earth, hidden in a place no one knew, was a ship. It wasn't like the ones the aliens had. It wasn't even like the ones humans had built. This ship was ancient, buried for centuries, forgotten by time itself. The ship was powerful, beyond anything Earth had ever seen. But it was also a mystery. No one knew who built it or how it worked. The ship's technology was too advanced for modern humans to understand. But it wasn't just the ship that was strange. It was what the ship could do. The government of Earth had been searching for this ship for years. Scientists and engineers had tried to track down the ship, but it was hidden so deep that no one could reach it. For years, they believed it was just a myth, a legend told to scare the people into believing there was something out there that could protect them. But then, one day, a small team of explorers found it, and everything changed. The ship was located in an underwater cave, miles below the surface. The entrance was hidden, and no one had ever discovered it. The explorers who found it were shocked. The ship was huge, much larger than any human ship. Its design was unlike anything they had ever seen, sleek, metallic, and powerful-looking. The explorers called it the Titan because of its size and strength. But that wasn't the most amazing part. The ship had been dormant for centuries, yet it seemed to be alive. The walls of the ship pulsed with light, as if the ship was waiting for something. The moment the explorers entered the ship, a strange voice echoed in their minds. "Awaken," it said. The voice was cold, but commanding. It was the ship's eye, an intelligence far more advanced than anything humans had created. But the eye wasn't just a machine. It was something more. It was a weapon that could destroy entire fleets. The explorers were terrified. They had never seen anything like this before. The ship was unlike anything they had ever encountered. But what was even more terrifying was the power it held. The ship's AI revealed that it was capable of wiping out an entire alien fleet in a matter of minutes. It could fire weapons that would tear through entire armadas, leaving nothing but debris in its wake. As the explorers tried to make sense of what they had found, they realized that the ship wasn't just a weapon. It was a last hope. Earth had been preparing for war, but no one knew how to fight back against the aliens. Their fleets were too large, too strong. But this ship, this Titan, was something different. It was humanity's chance to fight back. The problem was, no one knew how to use it. The ship's controls were complex, and its AI was far too advanced for any human to understand. But there was one person who might be able to control it. Commander James Hartley. He was a young officer, but he had been chosen for his ability to think outside the box. He wasn't like the other commanders. He had a natural talent for understanding new technology, even when it seemed impossible. The government believed he was the one who could awaken the ship's full potential. James Hartley had no idea what he was about to face. When he was called in to lead the mission to activate the ship, he had never imagined he would be at the center of humanity's last hope. But as he stood before the ship, he felt a strange sense of awe. The Titan wasn't just a machine. It was alive, and it was waiting for him. As he entered the ship, the AI spoke to him again. "You are the one who will command me. Together, we will change the course of the war." The words echoed in his mind, and for the first time, he felt a sense of purpose. The war was coming, and this ship was Earth's only chance to survive. But as James prepared to board the ship and take control of its power, doubts crept into his mind. Was he ready for this responsibility? Could he really control a weapon so powerful that it could wipe out an entire fleet in a single strike? The pressure was overwhelming, but there was no turning back now. The ship's engines roared to life, and the world outside the ship seemed to tremble. The war was about to change, and humanity's hidden weapon, the Titan, was about to awaken. The discovery of the ship was only the beginning. As James Hartley stood before the massive control panel, he felt a surge of uncertainty. The ship was silent, but its presence was overwhelming, as though it was watching him, waiting for him to act. The AI had been dormant for centuries, and now it was awake. But James had no training for something like this. He was a soldier, not a scientist or engineer. Could he truly understand the technology, let alone control it? The AI spoke again, its voice calm but forceful. "Commander, I am ready to follow your commands. Together, we will bring an end to this conflict." The words seemed to echo in his mind, and for a brief moment, James wondered if he was dreaming. But he knew it wasn't a dream. The world was on the brink of destruction, and this ship was humanity's only chance. He hesitated for a moment, glancing over his shoulder at the team of engineers and scientists who had gathered behind him. They were all waiting for him to take the first step. They had spent years studying the ship's technology, but they had never been able to activate it. The ship was too advanced, too alien. Only James had been chosen to lead this mission because of his unique ability to think on his feet, to understand things others couldn't. But even he had doubts. Taking a deep breath, he approached the control panel. The moment his hand touched the surface, the ship came alive. Lights flashed, and the ship's hum became louder, almost like a heartbeat. The AI's voice spoke again, this time more clearly. "Initiating system boot up. Please stand by." James could feel the power coursing through the ship, but it was also overwhelming. The walls seemed to pulse with energy, and the floor beneath his feet vibrated with strength. He wasn't just in a ship anymore. He was in something much larger, something far more dangerous. As the system booted up, the ship's weapons began to hum as well. They were ready for use, but James had no idea how to control them. A series of holographic screens appeared in front of him, displaying complex data and schematics. The ship's AI gave him a brief explanation, but it was too fast for James to process. He could feel the pressure mounting. The fate of Earth rested on his shoulders. He wasn't just commanding a ship, he was commanding humanity's last hope. "Commander Hartley," the AI said, "I am capable of extreme power. My weapons can destroy entire fleets in an instant, but they must be used with caution. The balance between power and control is delicate. You must learn quickly." James nodded, though he had no idea what he was supposed to do. The ship seemed to be waiting for him, as if it could sense his doubt. As he studied the screens, one image caught his eye, a massive map of the galaxy, with enemy fleets marked in red. The alien forces were drawing closer. It was only a matter of time before they reached Earth. Suddenly, the AI displayed a new message. "Alien fleet detected. Estimated arrival. 12 hours." The clock was ticking. James had no time to waste. He had to learn how to control the ship's weapons, how to defend Earth. But as the AI began to show him the basics of the ship's systems, something unexpected happened. The ship's power began to fluctuate, the lights dimming and flickering. The AI's voice grew more urgent. "Power fluctuations detected. Immediate action required. Commander Hartley, I need your full attention." James was overwhelmed. He wasn't a technician, and this ship's technology was beyond anything he had ever seen. But he couldn't afford to let his fear take control. The fate of Earth was in his hands. He focused, pushing aside his doubts and focusing on the task at hand. The ship was alive, and it would only respond to him if he took charge. "Stabilizing power," the AI said, and James could feel the ship settle, the hum becoming steady once more. He was getting the hang of it. Slowly, he began to understand the controls. The ship's systems were vast, but with each passing moment, he felt more confident. But there was still so much to learn. The weapon systems were complex, and the AI warned him that one wrong move could cause disaster. The weapons are designed to be powerful, but they are also volatile, the AI explained. Control is key. James nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. He wasn't just piloting a ship, he was using a weapon capable of wiping out entire civilizations. And the alien fleet was already on its way. There was no turning back now. As the hours passed, James worked tirelessly, learning the ins and outs of the ship. He tested the weapon systems, calibrating them to ensure they were ready for battle. Each time he made an adjustment, the ship seemed to respond, as if it were becoming more attuned to him. But he knew that the true test would come when the alien fleet arrived. Would he be able to control the ship's power in the heat of battle? Could he truly unlock the ship's full potential? The countdown had begun. The alien forces were coming. And as James stood at the helm of the most powerful ship in the galaxy, he couldn't help but wonder if humanity was truly ready for the war that was about to unfold. The days leading up to the arrival of the alien fleet were tense. Commander James Hartley could feel the weight of responsibility growing heavier with every passing hour. The ship, now fully powered and operational, was ready, but he wasn't sure if he was. The AI had guided him through the basics of the ship's systems, and he had learned how to control its most essential functions. But the real test was still ahead. How would the ship perform in combat? Could he control its power when the time came? The clock was ticking, and every minute felt like an eternity. The alien fleet was on its way, and it was massive. Their ships had been described as nearly invincible, built for destruction and conquest. For humanity, it was a battle they couldn't afford to lose. Earth had no defenses capable of stopping the invaders. The military was outmatched, and the world was on the brink of collapse. All they had was this ship, this ancient weapon that had been dormant for centuries. James stood in the control room, looking at the holographic map that displayed the alien fleet's position. The red dots were growing larger as they moved closer to Earth. There was no time left for hesitation. The ship had to be ready. "Commander," the AI's voice broke through his thoughts. "The alien fleet will arrive in approximately 3 hours. You must decide how you wish to proceed. I am capable of initiating the first strike, but you must be prepared for the consequences." James took a deep breath. He knew that once the battle began, there would be no turning back. The ship's weapons were capable of overwhelming force, but using them could have unexpected results. The AI had warned him that the ship's power was unstable, that it required precise control to prevent catastrophic damage. But what choice did they have? Earth couldn't survive without a victory. The fleet had to be stopped. He glanced at the team of engineers and scientists who had gathered behind him. They had worked tirelessly to get the ship ready for this moment, and now it was his turn to lead. He turned to them, his voice steady but filled with determination. "Prepare the weapons systems," he ordered. "We'll strike first. We can't let them get any closer." The team moved quickly, their fingers flying over the control panels as they adjusted the ship's systems. James watched as the ship's massive cannons powered up, their energy building with each passing second. The walls of the control room hummed with power, and the ship seemed to pulse with life. As the minutes ticked away, James felt a strange sensation in his chest. He was ready for the fight, but at the same time, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The ship was powerful, yes, but there was a wildness to it, an unpredictability that made him nervous. He didn't know what would happen once the battle began. Would the ship's weapons be as effective as the AI promised? Or would they fail when they were needed most? The AI interrupted his thoughts once again. "Commander, I must inform you that the alien fleet is now within range. The first wave of ships will be within striking distance in approximately 30 minutes. Your decision is final. The attack must be initiated." James nodded, swallowing his doubts. There was no other option. He couldn't allow the aliens to reach Earth. He had to act, and he had to act now. He stood up from his seat and walked to the control panel. The holographic screen in front of him showed the alien ships, now clearly visible on the map. They were huge, massive, menacing vessels that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. But the Titan, the ancient ship under his command, was bigger and stronger. It was humanity's last hope. "Activate the weapons," James said, his voice resolute. The ship responded immediately, the energy in the room intensifying as the weapons systems powered up. The AI's voice echoed in his mind. "Weapons are fully charged and ready for deployment. You are in control, Commander." James hesitated for only a moment before pressing the activation button. The ship's cannons fired with a deafening roar, sending powerful energy blasts toward the alien fleet. The first wave of alien ships was hit, their shields crumbling under the force of the blasts. The aliens didn't know what hit them. The Titan's weaponry was far more advanced than anything they had ever encountered, and the results were immediate. But the battle wasn't over yet. As the first wave of ships crumbled, the rest of the alien fleet quickly adjusted and regrouped. They weren't going to be defeated so easily. The remaining ships began to move into position, preparing for a counterattack. They launched their own weapons, firing powerful beams of energy toward the Titan. James felt the ship shudder as the alien blasts hit, but the Titan held strong. The shields flared briefly before absorbing the impacts, and the ship stayed intact. But the AI's voice sounded concerned. "Commander, power levels are fluctuating. The ship's energy is being drained faster than expected. The weapon systems must be used sparingly, or we risk losing control." James gritted his teeth. He knew the ship's power was limited, and the alien fleet wasn't going to give up easily. But he couldn't afford to hold back now. He ordered the weapons to fire again, this time aiming for the heart of the enemy fleet. Another barrage of energy blasts tore through the sky, hitting several alien ships directly. They exploded in brilliant flashes of light, their debris scattered across the battlefield. The alien fleet was taking heavy damage, but they were not retreating. James knew they would never stop until Earth was destroyed. This battle was only the beginning. The ship's power was vast, but it wasn't infinite. He had to think quickly if he wanted to ensure Earth's survival. "Commander," the AI warned, "the fleet is regrouping. They will launch another offensive momentarily. Prepare yourself." James clenched his fists. The fight was far from over, but he was ready. This was Earth's chance. The Titan had proven its power, but it would take all of his skill and judgment to win this battle. The war had only just begun. The alien fleet, now reeling from the unexpected assault, had momentarily paused to regroup. For a brief moment, there was a strange quiet in the control room of the Titan. James Hartley stood still, eyes locked on the flickering holographic map of the battlefield. The alien ships, once appearing unstoppable, were now visibly damaged. Their movements were cautious, as if they were reassessing their strategy. The Titan's weapons had proven more powerful than the invaders had anticipated. For the first time, Earth had a fighting chance. But James knew better than to get comfortable. The aliens would not retreat. They had a single objective: to conquer and destroy. This was just the calm before the storm, and the true challenge was yet to come. He turned to the team of engineers and scientists behind him, who were busy monitoring the ship's systems. "We can't let up," James said, his voice firm. "They'll come back stronger. Prepare the ship for another round." The team moved quickly, adjusting the Titan's energy levels and recalibrating the weapon systems. The ship was magnificent, far beyond anything humanity had ever created, but James knew its power was not unlimited. Each blast from the ship drained its energy reserves, and there was only so much left before the ship would need to recharge. He needed to be strategic. The alien fleet was massive, and they would keep coming until Earth was theirs. As the minutes passed, the alien fleet slowly began to regroup. Their ships reformed into a tight formation, and James could see them charging up their weapons once more. It wasn't just their firepower that worried him. It was their numbers. The fleet was enormous, stretching across the stars, and Earth's defenses were nowhere near ready to take on such a force. The Titan was humanity's last hope, but it wasn't invincible. "Commander," the AI's voice suddenly cut through his thoughts. "The alien fleet has initiated a new formation. They are preparing for a simultaneous offensive. You will need to decide how to allocate the ship's energy for maximum impact." James took a deep breath, running his fingers over the control panel. His mind raced as he calculated the best course of action. He couldn't afford to use all the ship's energy in one attack. It would be too risky. The ship needed to survive the battle, not just win the first round. But he also knew that Earth could not withstand a prolonged conflict. The enemy's strength was overwhelming, and they would only keep advancing. "We need to weaken their command ships," James said finally, his mind sharp with clarity. "If we take out their leaders, we can disrupt their entire fleet." The AI processed the command in an instant, targeting the command ships now. The ship's weapons hummed to life once again, but this time, James was careful. He selected a strategic strike, focusing on a small cluster of enemy ships that seemed to be directing the rest of the fleet. They were protected by a shield, much stronger than the others, but James knew the Titan could breach it. The ship's advanced weapons systems were designed for precision, able to bypass most shields with the right targeting. Firing in 3, 2, 1. The AI's voice counted down, and James pressed the activation button. The ship's energy cannon unleashed a precise beam, its power ripping through space. The targeted alien command ships exploded in a brilliant flash, their protective shields collapsing in an instant. The shockwave from the explosion rippled through the fleet, creating a wave of confusion among the remaining enemy ships. Some faltered in their formation, others broke off, and the communications between them seemed to falter. It was the disruption they needed. However, the alien fleet quickly began to adapt. Their ships regrouped, and a new wave of smaller vessels launched from the remaining motherships. James's pulse quickened as the number of enemy ships on his screens multiplied. Their response had been faster than he had anticipated. "Commander, the alien ships are closing in from multiple directions," the AI warned. "They are coordinating a pincer movement. If they surround us, we may not be able to escape." James's heart raced. The Titan was powerful, but it was not invincible. There was no way they could take on the entire fleet head-on. But then, an idea began to form in his mind. He could use the ship's advanced technology to his advantage. The Titan was built for power, yes, but it was also designed to be stealthy, capable of disappearing into the shadows of space when needed. He could use the ship's cloaking technology to slip past the enemy fleet and hit them from behind. "Activate the cloaking device," James commanded. The AI responded immediately, and a low hum filled the room as the ship's outer layer shifted to become nearly invisible to enemy sensors. The Titan slowly began to fade from the holographic map, blending into the surrounding darkness of space. It was risky. The cloaking technology had its limitations, and if they weren't careful, they could end up stuck in the middle of the fleet without any way to escape. But James had no other choice. They couldn't fight all the enemies at once. The alien ships continued their advance, unaware of the Titan's movements. James's heart pounded as the ship slowly moved behind the enemy lines, the silence of space surrounding them. The tension in the control room was palpable. He could feel every decision he made weighing heavily on his shoulders. When the Titan was positioned behind the fleet, he ordered the AI to disable the cloaking. They would only have a few moments before the alien ships detected them. The AI's voice came through, calm as ever. "Cloaking disabled. Weapons systems ready." The Titan emerged from the shadows like a ghost, appearing suddenly behind the enemy fleet. The alien ships had no time to react before the Titan unleashed another series of blasts, this time targeting the alien ships that had strayed too far from their formation. The blasts cut through the ranks, and several smaller vessels were destroyed before they could respond. For a moment, it seemed like the aliens were thrown into disarray. But as the remaining ships began to regroup, James realized something critical. The Titan's power reserves were dangerously low. The fight had only just begun, but they couldn't keep this up for long. It was time for another move. "Activate the final maneuver," James ordered, his voice steady. The ship's systems acknowledged his command, and he braced himself for what was to come. The real battle was only starting. The alien fleet, although battered by the Titan's surprise strikes, was far from defeated. Despite their losses, they were adapting quickly, reorganizing their forces in a way that no longer left any clear openings for an easy attack. The Titan's cloaking system had given them a temporary advantage, but that was quickly fading. The alien ships were beginning to close in from all directions, their movements more synchronized and deliberate than before. The situation was becoming more precarious by the second. James Hartley stared at the control panel, his mind racing. The ship's energy levels were running low, and the battle was far from over. Every move they made was a calculated risk, and he knew they could not keep up this pace for much longer. The Titan was powerful, but it wasn't invincible. He needed a new strategy, one that could not only break the alien forces, but also give Earth the fighting chance it desperately needed. The AI's voice cut through his thoughts, calm and composed as always. "Commander, the remaining alien fleet has reorganized. They are preparing for a full assault. The Titan's power reserves are at 30%. You must decide how to allocate the remaining energy." James exhaled slowly, trying to keep his mind clear. The ship had only a fraction of its energy left, and he couldn't afford to waste it. He glanced at the map again. The alien ships were closing in, and their numbers were overwhelming. They were relentless, their pursuit of Earth unwavering. But he had one final trick up his sleeve. He began, a plan forming in his mind. "I need to access the secondary engine systems. Can we use them to create a diversion?" The AI's response was immediate. "The secondary engines are operational, Commander. However, using them will drain significant power. You will need to choose wisely how to implement this strategy." James's eyes narrowed. This wasn't going to be an easy choice. The secondary engines, designed for high-speed travel, could propel the Titan to near light speed for short bursts. It could create the perfect diversion, a sudden burst of speed that would throw the alien fleet into disarray. But the price was steep. Using the engines would deplete the last of the ship's power, leaving them vulnerable afterward. "It's our only chance," James decided. "We use the engines to break through their formation. Create an opening for us to slip out of their grasp. We'll need to move fast and hit them with everything we have." The AI acknowledged the command. "Understood. Activating secondary engines in 3, 2, 1. A sudden surge of energy filled the control room, and James felt the Titan lurch forward as the secondary engines roared to life. The ship accelerated with a force that pushed everyone back into their seats. In a flash, the Titan was streaking across the battlefield at unimaginable speeds, weaving through the alien ships with precision. The alien fleet, caught off guard by the sudden burst of speed, struggled to react in time. Their ships were powerful, but they couldn't match the Titan's newfound agility. In the chaos, the Titan shot past the enemy lines, using its speed to create confusion and break the alien formation. For a moment, it seemed as if the Titan might slip through unscathed. But the diversion came at a cost. As the secondary engines began to drain the ship's power, the systems started to flicker. The control panels began to flash red as the energy reserves plummeted. The ship's weapon systems were offline, and James knew that they only had a limited time before the Titan was fully drained. "Commander," the AI warned, "the Titan's power reserves are critically low. The weapons are offline. We will have no defense left if we are engaged." James gritted his teeth, sweat beading on his forehead. He knew that time was running out. They had to make this final move count. There was no going back now. The alien fleet, still disoriented from the Titan's sudden movement, began to regroup. Realizing that the ship had breached their defenses, James knew they wouldn't make the same mistake twice. The alien ships began to turn toward the Titan, closing in from every direction. He looked around the control room, seeing the determined faces of the crew. They were all in this together. Their fight wasn't just for survival. It was for the future of Earth. They had one last opportunity to turn the tide in their favor. James said, his voice steady despite the mounting pressure. Can we initiate a direct charge to their central command ship? I know the Titan's weapons are down, but we still have the element of surprise. Can we target their leadership? The AI processed the request, its voice coming through with unwavering calm. The central command ship is located at the heart of their formation. However, it is well protected. A direct charge will put the Titan at great risk. The remaining energy will only allow for minimal offensive capability. It will be a critical strike. James's mind raced. This was the ultimate gamble. If they succeeded, they could disrupt the entire alien fleet, potentially ending the invasion. But if they failed, the Titan would be left powerless, vulnerable to the overwhelming force of the alien ships. There was no middle ground. I don't have a choice, James said, his voice resolute. We push forward, all systems to maximum efficiency. If we don't stop them now, we never will. The AI responded with precision. Acknowledge. Charging the remaining energy reserves for the final strike. The Titan, now barely holding together, surged forward once more. The alien ships, realizing the ship's intent, moved to intercept, but they were too slow. The Titan plowed through the center of the enemy fleet, the ship's energy reserves fueling one final burst of speed. They were headed directly for the heart of the alien forces, and James knew this would be their last chance. As the Titan drew closer to the central command ship, James's hands gripped the control panel tightly. The ship was on the edge of collapse, but he wouldn't stop. Earth's fate rested on this one moment. Initiating final strike sequence, the AI confirmed, as the ship's remaining power was channeled into a singular, decisive attack. The Titan surged forward, its last stand in motion. The Titan hurtled toward the heart of the alien fleet, its engines barely holding together as the last reserves of energy surged through the ship's core. Every system groaned under the strain, and the air in the control room grew thick with tension. James Hartley stood at the helm, his gaze fixed on the looming enemy command ship. It was massive, surrounded by layers of protective shields and swarming with alien vessels. But there was no turning back now. This was their final moment, the culmination of all their efforts. The Titan's last burst of speed pushed them forward, and the gap between the human ship and the alien command ship closed with terrifying speed. James's mind raced as the ship tore through the battlefield. The alien ships were desperately trying to react, but their efforts were slow. The Titan's agility, even in its weakened state, was enough to outmaneuver them. The central command ship, glowing with alien energy, was now in their sights. "Commander," the AI's voice came through, its tone slightly strained. "We are approaching the target. The remaining energy reserves will only support the attack for a brief moment. Once we engage, we will have no defense left." James nodded, his expression unwavering. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on him, but he had no choice. The fight had led to this moment. The fate of Earth depended on their success. He gripped the controls tightly. "Focus everything on the command ship," James ordered. "All systems are to direct their energy toward the final strike. We need to disable their leadership." The AI complied instantly. "Understood." Redirecting all remaining power to offensive systems. The Titan's weapons, once silent, hummed to life. The control panels flickered as the ship's remaining energy coursed through the systems, powering up its offensive capabilities. The ship was no longer just a weapon of war. It had become a symbol of Earth's resolve. The Titan was humanity's last stand. As they closed the distance, James could feel his heartbeat quicken. The alien ships around them tried to adjust, their movements becoming more frantic as they realized the Titan was on a direct course for their command vessel. But it was too late. The Titan had already made its decision. Activating final strike in 3, 2, 1. The AI counted down. The ship's main weapon, a beam capable of piercing even the most advanced shields, erupted from the Titan's hull. It shot forward with unimaginable force, cutting through the vastness of space toward the alien command ship. For a moment, everything seemed to pause. The beam, glowing with intense energy, streaked through the stars. The silence of space was broken only by the humming of the Titan's remaining systems. And then it hit. The beam slammed into the alien ship's shield, and for a moment, it seemed like the shield would hold. The energy from the strike vibrated through the fabric of space, shaking the Titan to its core. The alien vessel trembled under the assault, but it wasn't enough to break through. The Titan's weapon was powerful, but it lacked the full power needed for a decisive blow. James's heart sank. The command ship had absorbed the strike, but it wasn't destroyed. Yet he wasn't ready to give up. "Fire again," he ordered urgently. The Titan, already on the brink of collapse, released another burst of energy. The weapons array powered up once more, and another beam shot forward. This time, the alien ship's shield faltered. The impact was massive, and for a brief second, the alien vessel seemed to freeze. It was a sign of weakness. An opening. The alien command ship's shields finally shattered under the weight of the assault, and the Titan's beam cut through its core. The ship groaned as the impact sent shockwaves through the surrounding area. The alien fleet, once coordinated and invincible, now seemed to fall into disarray. The massive command ship, their central hub, began to break apart, its energy systems failing as the Titan's weapon tore through it. James watched in stunned silence as the command ship faltered. The remaining alien ships, now without direction, hesitated, their movements erratic. Some tried to regroup, but their forces were scattered. The Titan had done it. They had broken through the heart of the invasion force. However, the victory was bittersweet. The Titan's systems were failing, and the ship was running on empty. There was no more energy left to sustain them, and the crew knew they couldn't fight another round. The ship had done its job. Earth had a chance, but the cost had been great. James turned to his crew. They were exhausted, but their faces reflected the same sense of determination that had fueled them from the beginning. They had fought not just for their survival, but for their home, for their people. The AI's voice came through one last time, calm and clear. "Commander, the alien fleet is retreating. Their command ship has been destroyed. Victory is achieved." A heavy silence followed. James closed his eyes for a moment, allowing the weight of the moment to sink in. Earth had won, but the price had been high. The battle was over, but the war, whether against the aliens or the scars it left behind, was just beginning. He turned to face the crew, knowing that their mission was far from complete. "Prepare the ship for repairs," he said, his voice steady. "We've won today, but there will be more battles ahead. We'll be ready." The Titan may have been on the brink of collapse, but it had stood firm against an overwhelming force. And for the first time, Earth had proven that it wasn't just a young species waiting to be conquered, it was a force to be reckoned with.